the notion of grammar as having a function, grammar as a skill, not as a system, okay? He said, okay, grammar is spread throughout the text. So if you have a good grasp of grammar, you can manipulate the text. You can change the meanings of the sentences in the text by making little alterations in grammar and not in vocabulary. And more recently, Andrews conducted a meta-study. Meta-study is a research procedure in which the researcher doesn't go into the world and conduct his own study, but instead he collects all studies published on a given topic and compares the results. So in this study, over 6,000 research studies were compared, and the results were taken into consideration, and it turned out, in bulk of 6,000 different studies conducted in different contexts, different countries, that teaching grammar in isolation doesn't have much effect on students' language development, okay? So in other words, it shows that what we need for grammar to be acquired is context, okay? So yeah, grammar has form, but it also has meaning. And our role is to show the students that the form and meaning are interconnected and they cannot be separated. You cannot work on the form only and on the meaning later or separately, because they just don't, it doesn't work like that, okay? So, for example, if you show students a sentence or sentences, example sentences to present some grammar structure, like in this example we've got, he had a cake, he didn't have a cake. So obviously, yeah, the sentences are built out of blocks, and you can take them apart and you can put them together, you can manipulate with the blocks. Mind you, it's much better to manipulate with the blocks that are tangible, real blocks, okay? Or at least pieces of paper with the words written on them, because if you are working with very young learners, they are still at the stage of concrete thinking, not abstract thinking, and language is very abstract, okay? So for them, those sentences are just, you know, like hanging in the air, and yeah, you can translate them, you can describe them, you can talk about them, you can show the students the mechanics of the language. But without the context, they are not likely to be remembered. They are not meaningful for the students. So what you need to give them, apart from the structure, is the context. And the most natural context for young learners is graphical context, okay? The simplest is graphical context. So in this example, you can see the sentences and they make perfect sense once you see the picture, okay? So the picture makes the sentences, the meaning of the sentences obvious. You don't have to translate anything, you don't have to explain anything. The students look at it and they understand what the function of the structure is. And it's going to be much more memorable than learning how the structure works theoretically by heart. Because students' attention should be placed on grammar structures, not in separation, in decontextualized activities, but in their natural habitat, right? So grammar structures live in texts, and this is where they should be analyzed. So the idea is that before showing them, this is the structure, this is how it works, it's a good idea to show the whole context and ask the students to guess, right? What the structures mean. How do they feel the structure in the sentence, in the text? What the structure does to the text, okay? And some of the activities that focus on noticing, I'm going to share with you now. One of my favorites is the running dictation. I don't know if you know this one. It's quite popular, so you might, but I'll just quickly go through the instruction. Running dictation is one of very few activities I know that includes all 4 skills. So speaking, listening, reading, and writing at the same time in one activity. Okay, so for this activity, you need a few copies of a short text. They can be copied from the course book, or you can print them out from the internet, whatever text you find interesting for the students, and you stick them to the walls. Okay, my advice, copy a few and stick them in different places in the classroom so that when the students are running to them, they don't kill each other, okay? So you put them on the walls, and then you put students in pairs. One person in the pair is the writer and the other one is the runner, okay? Now the role of the runner is to run to the text, read a fragment, and memorize it as well as the runner can, okay? And then go back to the writer and dictate the fragments to the writer. Mind you, the point of this activity is that the runner dictates exactly the line or the fragment as they read it, not like a general idea of what the text is about, but word for word. So it's a dictation thing. So if they don't remember, they have to run back and come back with the text. And they do that until the text is ready. Once it's done, then the two students sit together and they make necessary corrections if the runner made a mistake. And this is a very important phase because it focuses on noticing, right? So you've got a text, some of it is correct, some of it doesn't sound so good. So you compare the sentences and say, okay, something seems to be missing in this sentence. Okay, it's in this sentence, so maybe it should be in this sentence as well. The winners are the pair that does it fastest, but also with fewest mistakes. Okay. Another activity that I really like for students to notice grammar is conditional explanation. So when you were teaching conditionals, whichever conditional, I took the second one. You ask the students to make conditional sentences as a typical drill during a lesson. They make the sentences, and then you tell them to cut the sentences in half, okay? And then you collect the sentences and put them in two different boxes, okay? And then you put the students in pairs or in groups, and you ask them to pull one half from one box and the other one from the other box, okay? Randomly. So when they put it together, some of the sentences will make sense. If they make sense, they put them away. But if they don't make sense, we work with them, okay? So let's say that I pulled, if I knew how to cook, I would go swimming every day, which doesn't make much sense. And then I asked the students, okay, so now it doesn't make sense, but you need to work on it to make sense. Explain it to me, how it works, how it could make sense, okay? So, and then students in pairs or in groups sit together and they come up with a explanation. So for this particular case, it could be, if I knew how to cook, I would open a restaurant. If I opened a restaurant, I would make a lot of money. If I made a lot of money, I would move to the seaside, which makes sense because the land at seaside, especially in Poland, is very expensive, most expensive in the whole country, probably in other countries as well, because it's very attractive. So, and you need to have a lot of money to move to the seaside. And once, if I moved to the seaside, I would go swimming every day, makes perfect sense, okay? So I got there. Now, what is happening in this activity is that students are focusing on the meaning, on the information, okay? So they are trying to, to fill the gap with some logic. They are trying to come up with something witty, something interesting, and they forget that in the meantime, while doing that, they are actually forming conditional sentences one after another. So they are revising the grammar, but their focus is on meaning, on not on the structure, but on the function of the language. And that's cool because grammar is intuitive. It should be intuitive. They should feel that grammar does something to the text, okay? And once they do understand that tiny little differences, changes in the text, in the grammar of the text, will change the meaning, they can manipulate texts, okay? And this is like the second batch of activities for students to manipulate text, okay? So first, they need to notice. I'm giving them a text, for example, a blog post or whatever. This one is a memory from holiday. Because it's a memory, we are focusing on structures in the past. So we've got different forms of past: regular, irregular, question, existential structure, like there was. We've got models in the past, okay, had to await. And students read that, they just underline the structures and they say, okay, so this is what we are working on today. And then, because I want them to feel that they are in control of grammar and that this grammar will change the situation, I tell them, okay, now we are going to rewrite the text, but we are going to rewrite it in the present tense, okay? Now, if you do that, and I'm pretty sure you do that because it's a typical activity, typically it's done from present to past though, but it doesn't really matter, it's just a change of tenses. Make sure that they understand the context and that the context is logical, because very often they tend to think that grammar is illogical, it's just floating somewhere in the air, okay? And in actual fact, it's very logical, okay? So in this case, we read the blog about a memory about a holiday and say, okay, and now we are going to write the same thing, but in the present. Okay, what would have to be the context in which it would make sense to say all these things, but in the present? Okay, and my students quite quickly came up with the idea that it would have to be a situation in which somebody calls you while you are on holiday in Spain. Okay, but because the lesson was with young teenagers, I'm sure that you probably know that calling is the last function of a phone that they use in their lives. So they say, okay, nobody's gonna call you. Yeah, it's like a boomer thing. You don't call people, you text people, okay? So for them, the most plausible context for this situation to be reported in the present tense was texting, okay? That's fine. So we came up with a conversation sort of on the phone in writing. Okay, so I was the victim because I was the teacher there. So the conversation starts with me. Hi, Anna. What are you up to? Well, actually, I am on holiday in Spain with my husband. Okay, so there is a change of the context a little bit. Okay, and then they ask me a question, and then I tell them everything that is happening right now because I'm texting now and I'm now in Spain. Okay. So this is how we show them the power they have over grammar, right? So a little bit change in grammar makes a big change in reality, in the real context. Okay, another context that you can use, this context actually comes from very long time ago when the Times magazine was publishing competitions for readers, for adults, competitions that were of 50-word essays, okay? So people were supposed to write 50-word essays and 10 words were given and they had to include those 10 words. So you can use the same idea. This is actually the photo, the picture comes from an actual magazine which organizes such contests every month. So if you want, you can enroll your students' essays or texts into this competition for them to have fun as well. Maybe they win something. Okay, but we can tell the students, you are going to write a 50-word long text, okay? But that's not what we need. We need an edge, okay, like a pedagogical aim. And our pedagogical aim can be eliciting from them the different structures that we are practicing, okay? So we can tell them, okay, I am giving you an instruction here, and it looks a little bit like a secret code, right? You have to decode what you actually have to do. So you're going to write a 50-word story, but you need to include one of each of these structures, at least one of each of these structures. And then you have to read through it and cross out all the words that are not essential because it's only 50 words that you're allowed to write, okay? Now, this is important because students notice and they find out quickly which words are essential for the sentence to exist, okay, for it to be grammatically correct, and which words can be taken away without much loss to the text, okay? So I find the last stage, the stage when they are trying to make it shorter, the most interesting of all. And so they can follow the instruction and write a 50-word story or essay or whatever that you want them to write. And then they have examples, okay? They have a text because this is just theory. Yeah, and I'm sure that you've got students that you can wake up in the middle of the night and ask them about present perfect, and they would go like, present perfect is a tense that describes a situation that happened in the past but has consequences in the present, and they can recite how it's formed and so on. But when they are speaking or writing, they hardly ever use it correctly. That's because examples are much more powerful than theory. Okay, theory is declarative. Yeah, you know something, but examples are procedural. Okay, they are practiced. Yeah, this is something you actually use. Examples are much better. So I'm gonna try something on you. A very long time ago, some maybe 20 years ago, I went to a conference in which the presenter told us to think of a sentence that includes past continuous and past simple in a sense that you were doing something in the past when something else happened, okay? And I want you to think of the first sentence that comes to your mind, okay? Don't overthink it. What's the first sentence, the model sentence that you have in your brain from the times when you first learned that, okay? Well, you can share it in the chat box so that we can see what the sentence is. Okay. Melina, well done. Okay, give me some more. I'll give you like 10 seconds. The first thing that comes to your mind, very quickly. Okay. Some are very creative, very true. Okay, very nice. Yeah, so I'm not disappointed. Well, the funny thing is that at the conference back then, 20 years ago, there were people from many different countries with an international conference. And the presenter told us to write down the sentence or think about the sentence. And then she said, okay, and now I'll pretend I'm a fortune teller. And I will tell you that probably some of you thought about some kind of showery thing, okay? Taking a shower, taking a bath, swimming, okay? Or some of you might have thought of something ringing, a phone ringing, a doorbell ringing, somebody came to the door, knocking at the door, okay? Obviously, there will be some more creative answers as well, but mainly at that time, this 20 years ago, like more than half of us had the exact same sentence. I was taking a shower when the telephone rang. Why? Because it's a very good sentence. It's a very good model sentence, okay? And also because many of us were using the same grammar books to learn English. At that time, there was not much choice. So we were probably using the same books and we got this sentence and it sort of got into our minds because it was a very good example sentence, okay? Now, modernly today, they are called mentor sentences, okay? So you come up with a sentence that is powerful for you, okay? It doesn't have to be powerful for anyone else. It has to be powerful for you. Typically, such sentences are personalized, okay? So if you are using a model sentence in presenting grammar, think of something that is either very logical, like I was taking a shower when the telephone rang, or ask the students to come up with their own that are true for them, okay? So with the older students, when we are doing like high-level grammar, we are typically using, I will have graduated high school by the year, and everybody writes the year they want to graduate by. Because it's powerful, because it's about them, okay? So when you are working with young learners, you can also ask them to come up with their own sentences, okay? So this is, I have absolutely no time given by Will, thank you. But I have so many examples of my students, because I am a teacher trainer at the university and we go to schools to teach. And sometimes my students come up with so many good stories to prove the point. Like when there was a lesson about pets and my student was teaching, I've got a cat, I've got a dog. And she thought it's a good model sentence. So she told the whole class to repeat the sentence, I've got a cat, because she thought they will remember, like as a mentor sentence, I've got a cat. And by the time she got to one boy, he said, I haven't got a cat, I've got a gerbil. Okay, and it was very surprising because it's not like a typical animal to have. And also it was for this boy a mentor sentence because it was important for him, nobody else, just him. Okay, so whenever you've got an activity in which the students can write sentences about themselves, use that as mentor sentences because they might remember them much better than just random grammar sentences. Okay, because grammar needs to be learned through the examples, and once you've learned it, you are the master of grammar, and you can like float on the text, on the page, and you can like complete the text like with grammar, like jigsaw puzzles, and you have a lot of fun. So my recommendation is Story Starters. If you don't know that one, it's a very nice one. It's a story page where you've got like a sorter. You pull like digitally pull the lever, and that will it will give you random cues. For the purpose of this presentation, mine got draw a picture of and write a paragraph about a careless acrobat who discovers a hidden waterfall. Okay, if you don't like it, you can also spin each wheel separately until you're happy with it. And these are the ideas for a text. And then there's a nice layout in which the students can draw and write a paragraph following the cues. Okay, low-tech version. You don't have the equipment. We are going to New Zealand, yes, because we were in Spain. Now we're going to New Zealand. So imagine that I come into the classroom. You are my students. I come to the classroom and I say, all right, I've got good news for you. We are going to visit New Zealand. We are going to visit New Zealand because we are practicing going to structure, right? We are going to visit New Zealand as a class. We are going on a school trip, okay? To visit New Zealand. What are the logical questions you are going to ask me about the trip? Give me some in the chat so I know. When is a very good question. How can we get there? Excellent. Okay. Are we vaccinated? I like that one. I did not think about this one. Okay. And what is the purpose? Right. Yeah, there should be a purpose for a trip, definitely. Lovely. Okay. Are we going to get back? Oh, that's my favorite, I think, so far. Okay, any question is good, and the students are producing the questions. So I came with very boring ones, as I can see in your chat, not so, and I was not very creative. So when are we going to go there? How are we going to get there? Where are we going to sleep? I thought would be interesting to know. What are we going to eat? Who or what are we going to take with us, and what are we going to see there? And an important one, how much are we going to pay for it? Okay, since it's a school trip. And then you can make the text together. Okay, so you can write the text by answering the questions, and you'll have like a text written by the whole class. Or my version, you can put the questions on separate pieces of paper, right? So one question per page. And then you can give it to the students and tell them that they are going to write the answer, but every student can write only one word at a time, okay? So when, for example, I'm the first and I got, when are we going to go there? I can write we, and I need to give it to the student sitting next to me, okay? And the student next to me will write are. And the beginning is going to be predictable. So we are going to go there. And now creativity starts, okay? Then the students can write whatever they want to, okay? When are we going to go there? So the beginning, again, is going to be predictable, like we are going to go there. And the next person can write in. So in will sort of narrow your choices to in summer, in 2055, in November, okay? But the next person may write, for example, the. So it narrows it down even more, like, so now you got, we are going to go there in the, okay? And then the next person has to flexibly adjust his ideas in terms of grammar so that it's a correct sentence, right? So I had a different idea in my head, but now this is what I got, and I have to come up with something that fits grammatically, okay? Like that, it really works usually fun. At the end, we collect all the papers and you read that out as a whole text, which typically is hilarious. Another one, a slightly easier one for maybe younger learners. This time we are not going to New Zealand, we're going somewhere colder, the North Pole. And here we've got some information about the place where we go, is that it's very cold. You can't forget your jackets, but there's a kitchen with plates and cups, so you don't have to take them, okay? And then you have a backpack and you've got 6 slots. You can take 6 things, right? So you need to decide what you want to take to the North Pole, but in my class, I always say my students that they need to explain themselves, okay? So they're going to write, like, in my backpack, there are some jumpers because why? That's easy because it's written in the text. But there aren't any, and now they have to come up with something and decide why, right? And with each and every item, they need to explain themselves. Obviously, here we are practicing some and any. Okay. And so the last thing I want to share with you is my buddy, my writing buddy. Mizu creates a writing buddy. This is a very creative type of activity where the students, you can do that in class, or you can ask the students to do that at home just for practice. This is a very nice thing to practice writing in a creative way. Now, the writing buddy is a chatbot, but it's very different from GPT chat, for example, because it doesn't do the writing for the student. It is cooperative. It asks the students that maybe you would like to say something about this. Maybe you would like to use these words. Maybe you would like to use this grammar structure. Oh, that's a nice grammar structure that you used. Why did you use it? Did you want to express this or that? So it really is very helpful, and it makes the student think. And sometimes interacting with a chatbot, I know that novelty will wear off probably, but at the beginning it's quite interesting because you say something and the chatbot understands you, right? And gives you the cues for further writing, and together you can write a whole text or a whole paragraph and then share it with the class, for example. It's free. I think you have to register, but after you do that, you don't have to pay anything, and you can make your own activity, or you can use the activities. I just chose random 6, but there are like 100 of them for writing, for practicing writing with children at all ages. So highly recommend that. And just to finish with a quote, I think that the important thing is that we realize that we can't teach our students everything, okay? It's impossible. There are too many words in English. There are too many different possibilities of creating different phrases. It's impossible to teach them everything. But what we can do is create in them the need to learn and fuel the curiosity and give them the tools that will help them express themselves and will help them to say what they want and not what they can, right? Because this is the typical problem with the students. When they lack the tools, they lack the resources, they resort to something that is more or less, okay? And if you show them that grammar carries meaning, and by manipulating little bits of grammar, you can actually change the context and the message that you want to convey, then they will rule the grammar, and their presentations, their writings will be much better and much more, and they will reflect themselves and their ideas much more than without that knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anna. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely jam-packed as well. Thank you so much. I love the fact that you included some classics. The running dictation was an I love the running dictation. It always goes, no matter what age group as well, running dictation.